Under the blinding heat of the desert sun, sweat dripped down her face. But it wasn't the sunburn that burned the most, it was the humiliation. Her arms trembled, not from the weight of the training gear, but from the weight of their stares. The men's laughter sliced through the still air, their voices dripping with mockery, calling her deadweight, fragile, a mistake. The Marine training ground was indeed just a battlefield for endurance. It was an arena for proving one's worth. To them, she was already a casualty. They'd written her off before she even began, branding her too weak, too slow, too soft for this world. But in her eyes, hidden beneath the sting of shame, a silent fire was building. They had no idea that the woman they dismissed was about to give them the kind of lesson no military handbook had ever prepared them for. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the strength that blooms when no one believes in you, take a moment right now to like this video, share it with someone who needs inspiration, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us bring you powerful, true life stories that remind us all of the courage inside every heart. Her name was Lena Cross, a young woman from a small town where ambition was often drowned by the comfort of familiarity. She had grown up with the kind of quiet resilience that came from watching her father work. Double shifts at the steel plant, and her mother battle a lifelong illness with grace. Life had trained her in patience and sacrifice, but not in the art of fighting, at least. Not the kind of fighting required on a Marine base. When she signed up for the training program, her decision was met with disbelief from her family and outright ridicule from her peers. What business did she have standing alongside towering men with years of athletic backgrounds? What good were her delicate hands in a world of bruised knuckles and battered pride? The first week was brutal. Every day began before sunrise, the cold biting through her fatigues, before the desert heat set in. She learned quickly that here weakness wasn't just frowned upon, it was targeted. Her gear seemed heavier than anyone else's, her runs slower, her push-ups shakier. The instructors barked orders, but it was the quiet, sarcastic jabs from the other trainees that lodged deeper. Better stick to the kitchen? One would sneer under his breath during drills. Hope you brought a sewing kit for when you rip something out here, another would mutter. Even the ones who didn't speak seemed to watch her with amused detachment, as if they were just waiting for the inevitable moment she would quit. But quitting was never part of Lena's DNA. In the evenings, when most collapsed onto their bunks, she stayed in the dim light, practicing her forms, drilling herself until her arms ached and her lungs burned. She started running extra laps alone in the dark, the pounding of her feet on the gravel becoming a kind of rhythm, a promise to herself that she wouldn't leave here the same. Slowly, painfully, she built strength not just in muscle, but in resolve. She began to notice subtle changes. The gear didn't feel quite as heavy, her breaths lasted a little longer, and her reflection in the mirror showed eyes that didn't flinch anymore. Still, the harassment never stopped. The real breaking point came during a combatives training exercise. The rules were simple: take your opponent down. Lena was paired with one of the loudest voices against her corporal Briggs, a broad-shouldered Marine with a smirk that always seemed to be aimed at her. He didn't just beat her, he humiliated her, tossing her to the ground in seconds, the wind knocked clean out of her. The group roared with laughter, the sound echoing in her skull long after she walked away. That night, she didn't cry, she didn't even feel sad. She felt something sharper. She made herself a silent vow: they would remember her. Not for her weakness, but for the moment she shattered their expectations. She began to train differently. While others slept, she worked on her core, her balance, her ability to redirect force. She studied not just Marine training manuals, but also techniques from combat sports, learning to use leverage and speed against size. The instructors started noticing her discipline, though they said little. Weeks passed and something shifted. Her movements grew cleaner, sharper. She stopped chasing the approval of her peers, and instead focused on mastering the craft. The day of reckoning came in the form of a final training evaluation, an exercise designed to test endurance, skill, and tactical thinking. 5 Marines, handpicked for their strength and experience, would face trainees in a controlled combative scenario. Lena's name was called, and when she stepped forward, a ripple of chuckles ran through the crowd. Among the 5 waiting for her were Briggs and his friends, the same men who had made her early days a torment. They wore the same smug expressions they had on day 1, confident this would be another easy takedown. What happened next? Silence the field. Lena moved like a storm-controlled, precise and unstoppable. She ducked Briggs' opening swing, pivoted, and drove him to the ground in one swift motion. The second Marine lunged, but she countered with a strike to his center of gravity, sending him sprawling. The third tried to grapple, but found himself locked in an armbar before he could blink. 4 and 5 barely had time to process what was happening before they, too, were on the ground, gasping for breath, their pride bruised beyond repair. It was over in less than a minute. The only sound was the ragged breathing of the men she had just dismantled. No one laughed now. Even the instructors stood still, their eyes following her as she straightened up, sweat dripping down her face, chest heaving not from exhaustion, but from the release of weeks of pent-up determination. For the first time since she arrived, the looks she received weren't mocking. They were stunned, maybe even a little respectful. She didn't smile or gloat. She just walked back to her place in line, the desert wind brushing past her like a quiet acknowledgement of what she'd just done. In the days that followed, the tone toward her shifted. The same Marines who once dismissed her began to greet her with nods of respect. She had proven not just that she belonged there, but that resilience, grit, and quiet persistence could outmatch raw strength and arrogance. And somewhere deep inside, Lena knew that her victory was in tea just for herself. It was for every person who had been told they weren't tea enough. Every soul underestimated simply because they didn't fit the mold. If this story touched your heart and reminded you of the power of perseverance, please like this video. Share it with someone who needs encouragement today, and subscribe to our channel for more real and powerful stories. Special request: before you leave, drop a comment telling us about a time you proved someone wrong when they doubted you. It might just inspire someone else who's watching.